If you saw this watch on someone's wrist, you probably wouldn't pay attention to it because it's not a particularly eye-catching watch. I mean, it's not as recognizable as a Rolex or an AP. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about this watch and many other brands that the general public may not know about. Because this watch has a retail price of $13,500, almost the same as a Submariner. Now, people who are not so into the world of watches started to know this brand last year, thanks to the collaboration with Swatch, and the brand is Blancpain, one of the oldest, most historic and innovative watch houses that have existed. But how can a brand with such a large, historic and rich tradition not be well known? And so we are going to get into a bit of a discussion because I believe the same thing is happening with a brand even older and more historic, such as Breguet. Now, what do these two brands have in common? Well, Swatch Group owns them both. And although today we're going to focus on Blancpain, I think the same applies to both brands. Certainly, I think these historic brands are underutilized. I feel that they are houses from which an impressive amount of juice could be extracted just by reviving historical models. Just to give you an idea, Blancpain had a fight with Rolex about who was the first brand to invent dive watches. But we're not going to get into that topic. Now let's go back to another controversial topic that I'm sure many of you are already tired of. But I think it is really important to talk about this. The Moon Swatch. An excellent marketing strategy by the Swatch Group to position its affordable brand way above many other brands to attract young people and women to watchmaking. It is undoubtedly one of the best customer attraction strategies of the last few decades. And seeing that the strategy was a success, it was decided to replicate it with Blancpain. Now, from the beginning, it was known that it wouldn't be a sales success, just like the Speedmaster, of course. The price was higher and the brand and model were not as recognizable. Now, if you ask me, I believe that this was not a strategy to generate more sales, but a strategy to generate brand awareness. It was created so that people would start to know the models and investigate about Blancpain. It is a historic house with incredible models that certainly the vast majority of people cannot afford. I mean, of course, because they have incredibly high prices. And I believe that Swatch could perfectly squeeze the story of Blancpain and Breguet, just as it has done with the story of the Speedmaster, the watch of the astronauts that went to the moon. With Blancpain, it could be the story of the first dive watches. And with Breguet, well, we only have the father of too many complications and mechanisms and functions. Just that. Now, saying all of this is a double-edged sword. But why? Well, it is very simple. I think, from my point of view, that there are two types of watches in the market. Watches that sell name and watches that sell quality. Now, I want to make it clear that a brand selling you name doesn't mean that their watches are not made out of quality. But let's say that when we talk about pieces that have a high price for what you pay, generally in that high price, in addition to quality and construction and everything, they are putting something called the name tax or brand tax. It is an extra amount of money that you pay just for having certain name on the dial, just like Cartier, Rolex, AP. And they don't always have to be very expensive watches. We could give the example of maybe Tag Heuer watches with their entry-level models. It is a good watch, well built, but for the price they are asking, which is around $2,500, I think you could get a piece with less renowned name, but of higher quality. So why do I say it is a double-edged sword? Because if these brands are already quite high in price, without having such a high brand recognition, if they invest in generating all of this brand awareness, who do you think will end up paying for all of that marketing? Well, you, the one that buys the watches. But tell me, what do you think? Do you think it would be worth squeezing the juice out of these brands that are so historic but not so well recognized? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.